Well, according to the old clock on the computer, it's noon on Monday, June 27th, noon Eastern, by the way. And this is news that you can use from YAA with your hosts, Zach and Ray. How are you today, handsome? Good to see you.
I'm doing great, Pops. How you doing?
Oh, my God. If I was any better, I'd be a twins, as they say.
I've never heard that saying. Let's kick today's show off. Unless you want to explain the saying, you can explain the saying.
I, I, I don't know what the hell the saying means. It's just an old saying. Yeah.
Fair enough, Pops. Let's kick things off with the chip shortage, the latest on the chip shortage. We are going to spend some time today going through a McKinsey and Company white paper. But first, let's actually talk about the numbers. Dad, are you surprised by this whatsoever? The latest numbers on the microchip shortage, Europe and North America suffer the biggest hits. Hopes that the microchip shortage was easing off are proving premature. In the past 60 days, Auto Forecast Solutions has increased its forecast for lost 2022 production by 800,000 vehicles.
Am I surprised? Let me think for a second. No. Are you?
No.
Okay. I mean, I know there's lots of people that comment on our videos that would say, well, there is no chip shortage. It doesn't really exist. But when we get into the McKinsey and Company report, I think we'll be able to see that here's a third party that can prove conclusively, well, there's a chip shortage, and they come up with the reasons for why there's a chip shortage.
And it's like, I think what I'm frustrated by this morning, Dad, is it was maybe 3 weeks ago, maybe a month ago now, that Automotive news article was talking about, hey, Mercedes-Benz is seeing that the chip shortage might be over. BMW is seeing that the chip shortage might be over. And we've talked about on this show, and we can do it again today. We can go to Four Eyes. We can look at month over month inventory levels broken down by automaker. They are doing better. They're doing much better. The chip shortage for the rest of us, like, I haven't even pulled up the latest Toyota news. Okay, Toyota is they're reaffirming their guidance that they're still going to hit their numbers this year, but they also have only been able to produce the requisite number of vehicles they need to produce for the remainder of the year in any given month one time so far this year. Like, Toyota's struggling more than ever before, and BMW and Mercedes-Benz are producing. No one's being real about it. And even this upgrade of the forecast to say, like, hey, things are going to, no one's being real about it. It's going to be much worse than Auto Forecast Solutions has made out to be. Igor Koski has been the only person being real about it. You and Igor talking about how it's really going to be 5 to 7 million vehicles that are going to be lost.
Yes. They don't want to be real about it. They don't want to alarm their dealer body, so that they don't want to. It reminds me of the movie A Few Good Men. Okay, with what was his name? Tom Cruise and Jack Nicholson was in it. And the famous courtroom scene where Jack Nicholson says, "You want the truth? You can't handle the truth." Well, that's how manufacturers think. They don't want to share the truth with you. They don't want the dealers to know what's really going on, because they're afraid that the dealers are going to tell the customers what's really going on. Okay. What's so bad about that? I mean, one of our mantras here is knowledge is power. Okay. Or as I like to say, applied knowledge is power. So if they have no knowledge, I guess there's plausible deniability, but it would help everybody to understand. It would help consumers to understand how severe this chip shortage really is, these supply chain issues really are, so that it could better temper consumers' expectations and stop some of the nonsense that we see going on in the marketplace, because customers don't trust dealers. Dealers don't trust customers. The dealers don't trust the manufacturers. The manufacturers don't trust the dealers. The whole thing is built on mistrust.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I want to pull up on the screen. I just want to kind of like walk everyone through this. I think one of the things that we've done of good value here at YAA is every single week, and we've skipped it for the past few weeks, but we'll update it in a moment here. Every week, we're updating you on what Auto Forecast Solutions is saying.
Yes.
The number of vehicles that'll be lost from production. Now, before I pull it up on the screen, Pops, do you remember what they said the total number of vehicles lost from production will be on January 10th? The first projection for what 2022 will be. Do you remember what they
What,
said that
what
number
was
would
it?
be?
A couple 100,000, if I remember correctly,
They said that 767,000 vehicles would be lost from production. The
for the
only
year.
for the
Yeah.
year.
Okay.
For the year. We are currently at 2.3 million, and the
Okay.
projection is now 3.142 million. The only way you can be that off is if your information sources are wrong or you're really bad at your job. And I'm not here to say Auto Forecast Solutions is really bad at their job. I think they're probably maybe the best in the world at their job. They're the only one putting out these weekly reports. They don't have the right information, which to
Yes.
your point means the manufacturers are just like, zip lips. We're not talking to anyone about this. The reality is it's a lot worse than anyone is letting on to. At least that when you see headlines like this, the Toyota stuff, you read the McKinsey report, you realize there's a very long tail here.
No one can make an informed decision if they don't have all the facts and they don't have all the information. And when I mean no one, I mean the dealers can't make informed decisions on how to staff their dealerships and how to plan ahead. Consumers can't make an informed decision because they have no idea how severe the chip situation is. And so that, and I'm not justifying that anybody, and I'm not suggesting in any way, shape, or form that anybody should pay over MSRP. Okay. I'm not. But a consumer might look at the situation if they had all the information and say to themselves, it might be cheaper for me to pay $1,500 to $2,000 over MSRP today, because from what I'm seeing in the future, the supply is going to be even less than what it is right now. And so that $1,500 to $2,000 over MSRP might turn into $3,000 to $4,000 over MSRP if I wait 6 months. So it would help everybody if they had the correct information. But having said that, we know from the last year and a half, 2 years, that information is not forthcoming. And that's unfair to consumers and dealers and salespeople and everybody else that finds themselves in this situation. Yeah.
It would change the way that we think about the market and how people should make decisions. You would, like you just said, we might actually be super on board with paying over MSRP if people were honest about the reality that, hey, 2-3 years from now, there's still going to be a car shortage.
Yes.
You know, instead we have to try and piece that together. You have to kind of play the market per se. And that's not, I guess you can't say it's fair, because maybe the corporations make more money somehow that way. Maybe their stock prices stay higher somehow that way. It's just clear when you start to see these headlines, this is the reality of the situation.
Well, there was a show on Netflix, still is. And I just think the name of the show really indicates how this whole thing is structured. Okay, whether it be from the manufacturers, the dealers, whatever. And that show on Netflix, the title of the show was House of Cards. Okay. And I'm not talking about this from a political perspective. I'm talking about this as the whole construct here is built on a house of cards. Okay. That if somebody were to pull one of the cards holding everything up at the bottom, then the whole damn house of cards will collapse. And you know what? It's just time to be straightforward and honest with people so that they know how to plan. Everyone. It's not that hard. To me, it just really isn't all that hard. Just tell the effing truth.
Had to give you the stage there for a second, Pops. That was quite good. We got John in the chat saying, why are Hyundai and Kia still building so many cars? And I threatened that we would do this a second ago. You know what? We're going to it. We're going over to 4eyes.io. You can, as well as we do, scroll down to the bottom, go to their footer. Go to their footer on their homepage, click on data, and then you can come to this page that we're currently on. It updates in real time. every single day there's new data here. I broke down the relative change over time chart for those of you that listen to the podcast instead of joining us live. New inventory by brand, comparing inventory levels of new cars from April 2020, so pretty close to pre-pandemic, to June 2022, currently where we are. Kia inventory levels, this lighter purple line, this one, are down 78.6% from where they were little over 2 years ago. Hyundai inventory levels are down 55.2%. To provide even more context here, let's pull in, not type of vehicle. Let's pull in like a BMW, and let's pull in a Toyota. Hit apply. Loading, please. So we can start to see Kia's inventory levels are down 78.6, like we said. Toyota's down 60.2, Hyundai 55.2, BMW's only 46.6. And look at BMW's inventory. Recently, it's going up. Same with Toyota, actually. Look at that. Toyota's is bouncing back a little bit week over week, up 7%. So it's not fair to say that Hyundai and Kia are producing a lot of cars and everyone else isn't. Actually, I think we just looked at it right there. You could make a case that Kia is struggling the most.
Yes. So it's maybe there's a Kia dealer somewhere that has some cars on the lot, but you might want to double check that most of those cars that are on the lot are probably had reservations on them and are spoken for already, and they're just waiting for the new owner to come in and take delivery of their vehicle and complete the transaction. So no, most of the manufacturers are still struggling.
This is another thing that I think we're probably not braced for as much of an impact as we're going to have when the news breaks from learning fast. Second quarter sales data will be released in about a week. That data will tell us a ton of information about what vehicles are being produced and which aren't. I think you're about to see one of the largest quarter-over-quarter declines in new vehicle sales. I mean, CarMax's earnings were the first little prelude to what could be happening here. When I mean brace for impact, I think there's some seismic shifts that are going to happen over the next few months as we're heading deeper and deeper into a likely recession. It's pretty obvious to me that we're going to try and downplay the magnitude of the seasonally adjusted sales rate dropping by millions of vehicles. Month over month, quarter over quarter sales continue to go down. I think that's another area, just like the chip shortage.
Yes.
The news is actually worse than how we're making it out to be.
I think ultimately that will prove to be the case. And not only were CarMax's profits down, their sales were down. The sales volume was down over 11% over the same quarter year over year. That doesn't really bode well. So yeah, their sales were down 11% and profits were down almost 50%. The good news is that the amount that they took in went up, but profits are way lower. So I can't wait to see second quarter results for all these various manufacturers, and I agree with learning fast. We're going to learn some things that will probably be troubling and startling in the severity of the numbers.
You know what the other thing is that we're probably going to see? That Tesla is still the only automaker that's growing like crazy. They seem immune, and they raising their prices like crazy. So let's be very clear. Although all the different OEMs are raising their MSRPs significantly, but I bet you there'll be one of the few that is continuing to grow. Maybe them and like Genesis, like that. Those are the two that somehow continue to grow.
You're probably right.
Yeah. All right. We can spend a little bit of time diving into the McKinsey piece that I think there's a few highlights that are of interest. So I'll share my screen. We'll dig into those. And then let's switch gears to some other topics. This is a chart that demonstrates essentially the change in how much activity there was for semiconductors for the different segments, different industries.
Okay.
What I'm most interested in is the forecasted demand for semiconductors by an industry versus the actual demand for semiconductors by a particular industry in 2021. So you've got automotive down here. Automotive is not the largest segment that purchases semiconductors. No. Wireless communications, PCs, storage, industrial uses, then automotive. That's a pretty big gap between, in consumer electronics, you can see where all the chips are going. They're going to iPhones and things like that. But that's a pretty significant gap between what was forecasted and what actual demand was one of the other takeaways from reading this article, Dad, is car makers, automakers, they've requested as many as 120 million chips for 120 million vehicles to produce, even though expected sales were only 80 million. So you can put a lot of blame on the Fords, GMs, Stellantises of the world. But part of the reality here is the actual downstream suppliers are the ones that are unable to produce what they want. And the McKinsey report makes it very clear. Part of the reason that's still a struggle for automotive in particular is because it's less profitable chips that they
It's
want.
it's the old architecture that the profit margins just aren't there. And as we can see with most businesses today, where do you, if you have limited supply or limited production, what are you going to produce? You're going to produce your highest profit margin items. If you're selling things, what do you want to sell? Your highest profit margin items. And so, if the auto manufacturers don't change and move to the new higher profit margin architecture on these chips, then they're just going to keep waiting and waiting and waiting, because it's not in the chip manufacturer's best interest to suddenly stop making those high profit margin chips so they can make the low profit margin chips for the automobile manufacturers. So I think the change has to take place at the automobile manufacturer's level. And having said that, if they develop ways to utilize the newer, higher
Mhm.
profit margin chips that the chip manufacturers would love to produce for them, well, that cost is going to be passed on to, well, you know who, the consumer. The the cost of building the car is going to increase, so the cost of buying the car at the consumer level is going to increase. So we will see MSRPs increase on cars if the manufacturers, and I believe
Hmm.
one of the reasons that BMW and Mercedes-Benz was able to get the number of chips that they were is because they agreed to move to a more expensive chip that had a higher profit margin for the chip manufacturer. So guess what? You do that, you can build your cars. But the MSRP's gone up on those cars as well.
Yeah, I hear you loud and clear. And we talked about this on the YA Electric Show a little earlier about how EVs are becoming elitist because the price points are so high. It's the same thing with just like transit in general, which is kind of interesting. Another thing that I had queued up for today's show, Dad, was actually this research from CDK. Let me pull it up on the screen because I think it's pretty interesting what we're about to dive into.
Yes.
Gen Z car shoppers spend more time researching and find purchase process more difficult than older generations. Gen Zers are also going to be the ones, as you read this, that are more interested in like luxury vehicles and spending more money for a car. Gen Zers are also the people who are getting exposed to buy now, pay later, and also maybe not building a credit the right way. It's really interesting to think about cost of vehicles going up, Gen Z still being interested in buying them and having different kind of like financial mechanisms to maybe be able to afford it. Plus all these companies coming up with just like subscriptions or like leases that aren't actually leases. A lot of moving pieces for the next generation of car buyers.
Well, yes, and I think one of the reasons in that headline that the Gen Zers find the purchase process more difficult than older generations is because realistically, in a vast majority of the cases for these Gen Zers, it's the first time they've ever been in the market for a car. So they've never experienced it before. And the older generations have. And so they have grown accustomed to the sales process as we know it today. That doesn't mean, as you and I believe, that the sales process shouldn't change, because we strongly believe it should change, and the way we go about buying and selling cars we think should change.
Yep.
And perhaps uh, the Generation Zers are the ones that are will ultimately make that happen, because the dealers are going to have to adjust how they sell cars in order to get more of the people from Generation Z to come in and actually buy a car.
I want to pull up this comment here from Learning Fast. Leasing just isn't feasible right now. The terms on leases now have changed too much. They really aren't good anymore. And I agree with that. But one of the things that's interesting when you start to think about, hear me out here, buy now,
Um,
pay later, all those things where it's like, you don't actually ever pay for something, you just pay it out over time.
yes,
Gen Z uses that. you read this research and it talks about how Gen Z wants to buy luxury brands and they also don't want to go through the traditional process. And then you look out in the market and you see these pseudo lease options. Essentially, Gen Z and everyone's monthly payment driven. We all just want the right payment and we'll be happy, which is not the right way to think about an asset this large. I can see a world where you have these pseudo lease options that are super lucrative for the lender, super lucrative for the OEM. And you know what? Gen Z gets what they want. Everyone gets what they want. You get to drive a BMW. Do you actually know what you're paying for? Is it financially responsible? No. But literally, this research says that Gen Z over millennials, Gen Xers, and baby boomers are interested in buying luxury cars. What does that say to you? That they're materialistic? Sure. But that they're willing to spend money on things that are depreciating and, a money.
What it says to me is that they want what the elites have without having to become an elite. Okay. It's like a lot of millennials and a lot of Generation Zers when they go to work. Well, they don't understand why they weren't hired to be the CEO on their first job. Okay. They don't want to have to start at the bottom and work their way up. So they don't want to start with a Mitsubishi Mirage or a Nissan Sentra. They think their starter car maybe should be a BMW 3 Series or a 5 Series. That's the difference. They don't want to work towards it. They just want to have it.
Everyone's a little bit like that, but Gen Z especially. Okay. But everyone's like that.
Well, yeah, but yes, I think everyone's like that. But I don't know, from my generation, and I take a lot of crap because, well, I'm a boomer. From my generation, we worked to be able to ultimately acquire these things. We didn't start out by saying, I want a BMW 7 Series. We started out by saying, I guess that base Nissan Sentra will work.
What are the 7 deadly sins, Dad? It's like, I pulled it up. I pulled it up on my screen. Lust, gluttony, greed, sloth, envy, pride.
Yeah.
I mean, wrath.
Yeah.
Like, you can just kind of see how social media being connected to your phone at all times probably makes you lust, gluttony, greed. And then that manifests itself as I want to drive the BMW. I want to pull up something though.
Yes.
I want to pull up something that I think will help inform. Yeah.
And may I say one thing?
Please.
And we are on a social media platform as I say this.
Yep.
Okay. But I think the greatest disservice to humankind was the invention of social media. Because trust me, from everything I've seen, there's nothing social about it. It is so antisocial. It is scary. And so whenever historians look back at the demise of society, it will be because of social media, in my boomerish opinion.
All right. Now, let's bring this back to cars and helping people make smarter decisions, Dad. If you have not used the Save Money Calculator on fueleconomy.gov, you are missing out on a terrible user interface, but great information. Pops.
Yes.
Name a vehicle. Just give me something.
Well, normally I go with a Mini.
Okay, let's do a 2023 because you just got a Mini.
Yeah.
Mini.
Clubman.
What do you have? A Clubman All-4? SL4?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
What this page does from the U.S. government, it tells you, and you can personalize your driving habits. So how many miles do you drive a year, Dad?
Well, if I drive a lot this year, it'll probably be about 6,000 miles.
And how much of that is city driving?
The vast majority of it.
Okay, so we'll keep it at 55.
I was going to say probably 70%, but okay.
We'll move it to 70. Let's say you keep it at you're going to own this vehicle for 10 years. You're looking at, Dad, because again, everyone wants just, a monthly payment. You're looking at $115 a month in fuel expense with gas prices where they currently are. Okay.
Wow.
Now, let's put another vehicle in here because this again is just free. It's from the government.
Now, okay, so put some type of SUV in there.
Let's do it. Let's do a brand new Ford Expedition.
do do like a RAV4 maybe, something like
Okay.
that.
Let me see what I have. I might need to do a 2022. Yeah, they don't
Yeah,
have the
that
2022.
probably, yeah.
All right, Toyota. I mean, RAV4 gets good.
It gets decent gas mileage. I guess, or you know what? Do a Yukon or
A
something like
GMC
that.
Yukon. Okay,
Yeah, something like that.
Yukon XL. There we go. All right, we'll do the 10 speed. Same driving habits.
Yes.
Costs you only $192 a month. That's actually not
Oh,
as bad as I thought it would be.
only it went up $77 a month. What are you kidding? And I didn't
Yeah.
even look on that chart on the right that said it was $77. I just did the math in my head.
So you can start to see here, and this is a really great resource. Yeah, you can even see like the cost per mile, how much that goes up.
What happens
Wow.
if you change the annual driving? Let's say we're typical and we drive about 15,000 miles a year. And let's say it's 55% city. So that SUV's cost you an extra $183 a month.
We need people like doing this. We
Yeah.
need people doing this like on the regular because it also coincides directly with, you saw the headline in Automotive News this morning, Dad. I'm
Which
sure you
one?
saw
I
it.
saw a lot of headlines.
Gas prices not denting demand for new cars.
Yeah, I don't get that, but that's besides the point.
It means people aren't using calculators like that.
Yes.
To make informed decisions.
Well, here's the reality. Most people don't make informed decisions. Okay, most people make decisions based on a lack of information, and then they suffer the consequences and say to themselves later, "Well, how did that happen?" Well, that's because you didn't take the time to make an informed decision.
I remember having those conversations as I was growing up in your household.
Yes,
Everyone should take a look at that. We've got people putting requests and like do a Hyundai Tucson from 2009, do an Audi
I like
RS6.
the RS6. Yeah.
Go to the site, test it out. It's really pretty interesting what they've been able to build there, and it's free. It's super easy to use. It's not the most sexy thing in the world, but it's super informative. I actually made a TikTok about it today to try and help more people become aware of these things.
Well, I'm not the sexiest thing in the world either. Now you may be, but but people use us all the time.
Thank you for
Yes.
that, Pops. All right, let's actually call it a show here just a couple minutes before the half hour. We will be back tomorrow. Then, Pops, you'll be in the office, so we'll be together on Thursday. So everyone, please make sure you're here with us on Thursday. And then we're not doing a Friday show, I guess, because you're going to be in Montreal before I am.
Yeah, since our flight leaves, you could do the Friday show all by
Maybe
yourself.
I will do the Friday show.
Yeah, maybe you could do the Friday show. You just do the Friday show with Kimberly.
Yeah, that'd be fun.
Yeah, I've done shows just with Kimberly. I think this could
Yeah.
be your turn. Yes, because my flight leaves earlier than your flight. Your flight leaves what time?
I don't know, like 3 p.m, something like that. And John, yes, we have not done a Saturday show in a while. We will not be able to this upcoming weekend. We're celebrating my dad's birthday, belated birthday celebration in Montreal for the Jazz Festival. But we promise to get back on the Saturday night shows because those are really fun. So they'll be back soon on the YAA channel.
Gosh, I hope so.
I enjoy doing them. It's like
Me
something
too.
I very much look forward to.
I wasn't kidding when I said I hope so. I really hope so.
Yeah.
Yes, it gives me something to do on Saturday evenings and a chance to interact with the audience and provide some valuable information.
Exactly.
Yes.
All right, I tossed the link for the fuel calculator, the savings calculator in the chat. Take a peek there. Pops, I will see you again tomorrow. Thank you for your time, and I love you.
I love you too. And yes, we'll be back here again tomorrow at noon Eastern, 9 Pacific, with more news that you can use from YAA with your hosts, Zach and Ray. So we'll see you tomorrow again at noon, everybody. Have a good one.
See you, Pops.